Go to this computer.
Hi, I'm Stephen Oram.
And I'm Robin Ryback. Welcome to episode 10 of Our Data, Our Future. This is part one of two of our summer special AMA Ask Me Anything. And today we'll be asking each other questions about creativity and writing. So, Stephen, I have a question for you. My first question is, how has your creative process changed from when you first started writing till today?
Okay. So I first started writing about 12 years ago. So that's the kind of the space there. And I think it's changed a lot actually. So just thinking about it, I think when I first started writing, I was definitely pulling on a lot of personal experiences in order to kind of write a story. I think my first novel was drawing on quite a lot of that experience, which I think is probably what a lot of people find. And I think weirdly at that time I didn't know that much about writing. So in some ways I wasn't overly kind of structured. I wasn't worried too much about whether I was doing it right, because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
But then I kind of went over the years as I went into short stories and the applied science fiction, where so you're writing for a purpose. You've got to like land certain moral ambiguities in the story. I think I then moved into let's stick with these. So experience into extrapolation and kind of quite conscious of structure, quite conscious of word length, conscious of those sorts of things. And in some ways, I think that was quite dominant. But more recently, again, sticking with these, trying to think about emotion. So I think now, emotionally, I'm drawing on a different part of me, not to kind of write about experiences, but to sort of try and draw something deep out into a story that has people and things where it's not me, but I can go through their point of view. And actually, the big change I think for me over recently has been to try and write a story and let the story take as much time as it needs to be told and as much time as it needs to become what it is. So I started seeing that as being more of an artist than a author. That kind of, I've got something and I need it to come out, which does mean I've got some very awkward length stories that don't fit into any of the kind of, it needs to be between this length and all the rest of it. But that's so that yeah, there's a, I think there's a maturing going on there, but it's also, if it feels very, very different. Does any of that echo with you at all?
Yeah, I like the way you explain your journey. It's very interesting. My journey, writing journey is somewhat similar but different. I started writing many years ago when I was in college, what we call university, and I would say the biggest difference in my writing is, I think, style. I started off very I guess, as anybody would when they're first starting, undisciplined. And I wrote a lot of stream of consciousness because that's what I was drawn to, because I read a lot of that. So it was sort of a feedback loop. I read a lot of, James Joyce, Gertrude Stein, Virginia Woolf. So that's what I gravitated to. But it was quite undisciplined. And as time goes on, have much more of a structure. I can write linear narrative. I can write dialogue. And although stream of consciousness does almost always creep back into my writing because it's sort of how I think. So, yeah.
So, picking up on that, and you say you read a lot and all the rest of it. Are there stories that you've read where you thought, I wouldn't have written it like that?
Um, that's a good question. I think I would say most of the stories that I read, I would say I wouldn't write it like that. And I say that because, and this is not just me, I think this is everybody. We bring whatever we do, whether it's we're writing or we're making visual art, we bring ourselves into our writing project. So I'm always going to bring in part of my culture, part of my social status, my gender, sometimes my politics. For instance, if you and I got the same prompt, okay, writing prompt, and it was the prompt is there's a space creature coming out of a hole. Okay, so we have to write about that. Now, you and I are similar in that we might write about near future. It's going to happen not today, not in the far future, but it'll happen in the near future, like 100 years from now. But that's where I think we're really going to diverge because I think about, sort of the hole in the ground that the alien comes out of. I think of my American soil, whether I am placing it on another planet, my American soil comes and ground and dirt comes through, and also my alien creature is always going to be a part of me, even if I make the alien creature male or gender neutral. There's going to be something that comes through that expresses me as you know um, a female white woman, middle class, living in the United States. It will always come through and it will always be a part of me, just as yours will be a part of me. So I think almost every story that I write, that I see, I say, no, no, I would write it a different way. And that's not good or bad.
Yeah, 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 totally.
And you?
Um, I've never really thought about it that much, but from picking up on what you've kind of said there,
Hmm.
yeah, I would agree. Like, there's always going to be part of me. I'm UK, so class is going to feature in some form or other, no doubt. Yeah, I'm male, white, so that's gonna be there. But I think also there's something about um it's almost the story you want to tell. I wonder whether it's you'd read something and say, well, I enjoyed that, but actually the story I'd really like to tell about that would be this one. And sometimes like playing around with fairy tales and writing the version of a well-known story that you
Yeah.
would. So I think there's that as well, isn't it? It's like it's not just that I would have told this story differently, but I would have told a different story as well through that situation, or whatever. So
Yeah.
yes.
Well stated. Yeah. Well said. Yeah. Okay. So one more question that I have for you, which is, um, how has your creative process changed from when you first started writing? Oh no, that's not it. That was the first question.
I
Here
can
it is.
I can answer that one, Robert.
Is it going to change? Has it changed? Okay, no, here it is. Is when you think of creativity, what are the first three words that come to mind?
Okay, so I'll be quick. Freedom, uh, the unknown, and fun.
Oh,
So I
okay,
think,
good.
yeah, I think that it may reflect a life as a bureaucrat, but
Uh,
that kind of, as I was describing earlier, that kind of sense of I'm just going to let this become what it is becoming. I think it's that sense of I don't know where this is going. That's very freeing, and actually, it's quite a lot of fun. So yeah, that would be my three words. What about? Do you have three words that will come? So what comes to your mind?
I think of inquiry, intuition, and challenge, because those three words or those three concepts come into almost every writing project. I'm always asking a question. I'm always trying to intuit things, and it's always a challenge. If it's not a challenge, it's not going to be a good writing project. So,
Wow, it's interesting. So
ah.
on your kind of writing challenge and in your writing, so I'm presuming here that you get into a sort of creative flow. But what I'm wondering is, do you, and if you do, what are they? What are the differences between sort of, let's say, creativity in everyday life and that creative flow? Are they different things, do you think? And how are they?
Well, I think of it as creative flow and non-creative flow. Uh, Other than creativity in what I spend all my creativity on the writing, and when I'm not doing that, there's no more left, you know. So to me, it's really sort of a toggle switch. It's like an on and off. When I'm writing, I'm like I said, it's intuitive. I'm bringing things in. I'm asking questions. My everyday life, you know, when I'm going to the bank or I'm going to the park or I'm doing an errand or whatever I'm doing, it's things that you do in everyday life. You know, it's much more linear. It's much more logical. And you know, the problem comes when the toggle switch malfunctions. Then I start thinking about a scene, you know, and I sort of walk out into traffic. That's not, you know, it's dangerous. I have to, you know, work on that toggle switch so that you know,
Come on,
they're two separate ways of, yeah, they're two separate ways of thinking. What about you?
I think I don't know. I think there are creative moments in everyday life. I think that, so. If you take it in its broadest sense, so how you might react to, I don't know, a friend, or how if they're reading something recently or listening to something by Brian Eno and Betty Adrianus, I think. Can't remember her surname properly. And they were talking about art and how lots of different things can be art. And I think this relates to creativity. So the haircut you've chosen to have was a creative moment. The clothes you choose to wear are a creative moment. They talk then about it's art if somebody has a kind of reaction to that. Art is like where there's an action. So, you know, Mona Lisa isn't art to some one person, but a haircut might be art to the same person. Putting that to one side, I think so. I think there's a lot of creativity just in general. But what I've experienced more and more of as I've gone through this writing journey, as we were talking about earlier, is getting lost in something. But a bit like you're saying, getting run over because you're lost in something. So I'm either doing that through writing, or I tend to do a lot of walking in parks and along canals where I'm just drifting into this sort of creative flow. And I've recently become a big advocate of daydreaming, which again I think
Mm.
is kind of creative flow in terms of just getting lost in something. So yeah, it's that getting lost. I think is probably there for me is the difference. So brilliant. Well, we asked each other things,
We did, we did.
and I think that's probably sort of drawing us to a close, isn't it, on this particular one? So. I want to know lots more. I'm itching to ask lots more questions, but I won't. So, yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, and we'll continue this in part two of our summer special. So stay tuned. Bye.
Bye.